Hey guys, it's Matt. This video is TPS report approved. Since that's a new concept, as a reminder, it just means you don't really need to see anything on screen. It's helpful, but if you're at work, you don't need to see it. TPS report approved is what we'll use going forward. Now, one of my favorite topics are these things that are artificially carried through time. And I have a name, like the awards we're handing out, I have a name for something that's artificially carried through time. If you have a better name, I'll listen in the comments, but for now we're going to call it a stuffed Lenin. A stuffed Lenin. The Three Musketeers popped up again, and like it always does, right? And if you're French, don't get triggered by this. I know this is your national pride and joy. As far as the United States is concerned, no other movie or book or poem has ever come out of France. This is the only thing that the country's ever produced as far as most people in most U.S. cities are concerned. I know we're kind of isolated when it comes to French works of art and literature. So this Three Musketeers pops up again, and I'm like, that's a stuffed Lenin, man. Which means, look, is it a nice little story? Okay, yeah, it is. But look at the lists and lists of movies and adaptations, like The Man in the Iron Mask. It's not even called The Three Musketeers. The Man in the Iron Mask with, Leonardo da Vinci DiCaprio and a maybe not so fat Gerard Depardieu. As far as most of the United States cities are concerned, there's only one actor that ever came out of all of France, Gerard Depardieu. It's all we know. But okay, it gives it away. I thought, it just comes up too much. Because is it that great? Well, Matt, what's the truth in it? I don't know. The movies are so bad, I've never gotten through any of them, and I've never read the book. But it gives itself away when you just see lists after lists, adaptations, movie after movie. For what? Is it that great? Is it that exciting? I'm saying it's a stuffed Lenin. For this, I don't know why the system has to carry it, the Not Milk system working through its Hollywood minions or writers has to carry this forth. This story has to keep being presented. I don't know it well enough, but it's just not good enough to have been made as many times as it has been, if you see what I'm saying. Guys, 1 minute or less if anybody's new here and they're like, what the hell is he talking about? In the past, we gave these things the Humpty Dumpty Award, I think it was called. I'm moving past that. I like the term stuffed Lenin. We'll get to why I'm calling it that in a moment. But take Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, all these nursery rhymes, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, all this dumb stuff. Everybody around the world, for the most part, at least in the West, knows it. Your kids know it somehow. It's artificially carried through time because there's tremendous truth in it. That 99 point whatever percent of people never realize there's truth in it. But for some reason, this reality, this not milk system has to carry certain stories, themes, legends, nursery rhymes. It has to carry them through time and keep them in the forefront. It's almost like it needs to do it contractually. Hey, we showed them the truth in these nursery rhymes that everybody knows generation after generation. And they ignore the truth. The point is, none of these things are any good if there is no truth in it. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, like I've said 1,000 times, now 20 seconds or less. Whoever wrote that up, it wouldn't have survived one day. Having written this thing up over a few Guinness pints, some guy would have returned from the bar and presented it to his wife. Yeah, those types of relationships actually existed back in the day. A man presenting it to his wife, if you can believe that. People won't even know what I'm talking about in 10 more years. She would have said, what you want? I know, honey, you want to be a writer. You want to get out of your servant job at the Montague estate, but the Montague estate serves the whole community. We need the money. I want to be a writer. Okay, what do you have here? Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. What the hell is this? This sucks rocks. You have no future as a... She would have torn it up. There's a fire going at all times, even in the summer in these sharecropper places, so they could boil water at all times. She would have thrown it right in the fire, even if it was July. It wouldn't have survived even that moment. Yet all this shit is carried through time. And again, why the stuffed Lenins have to hang around forever is because there's gigantic truth as to the nature of a real person, the nature of reality itself, carried through all these stuffed Lenins. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty back together again. We're here basically in this life, in this reality, to put ourself back together. You don't look out to the king's men to put your ass back together. You certainly don't look out to the goddamn horses to help you out. That's what the people around you do in life, your cousins and stuff. They look to all the king's horses and all the king's men, probably just to the horses. That they can't help you put yourself back together. You have to put yourself back together. We all Humpty Dumpty. We fell off. Okay, we're in this low fiddling Ben's place. Don't disturb a body. We're in this place. We're here now. Nobody came in here perfect. We have to put ourselves back together. We could do an hour on any of these old nursery rhymes or whatever. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Says it's basically telling you that little star isn't what they say, what Elon Musk says or what Carl Sagan says. I mean, the moon, the legend and lore that never goes away of the moon is made of cheese. Why do we all know that? That wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes. Some guy at a bar belched out, the moon is made of cheese. Or where did that even come from? You can't even determine where this shit came from. It hangs around forever because there's truth in it. Not that it's real, like the truth is a ball of as a baby Swiss or something. It's just telling you that it's not what they say it is. It's row your boat. Life is but a dream. All this shit. Okay, we've been over all this shit, but got to do this, for the newer people. And if you have in the future, if you have a Humpty Dumpty award, put it in the comment of any video, even if it's off topic, or call it a stuffed Lenin. And even people send me this stuff. Eva sent me a picture of her. She was posing in front of a gigantic, it was like some theme park, some gigantic ceramic Humpty Dumpty. When the shit is all over the place, it's carried through time artificially as a stuffed Lenin because there's truth in it. So Matt, back to the Three Musketeers. Yeah, it does seem kind of strange that there's so many different versions and there's cartoons made of it and different adaptations like the Man in the Iron... What? The Anne in the Iron Mask? Well, it just doesn't seem natural. I agree, Matt. The story's not that great. Maybe 2 or 3 movies or 4. Okay, what's the truth in it then, Matt, you genius son of a bitch? I have no idea. I never read the damn thing. I started, even the movie with, what is it, John Malkovich? Is that the one with Gerard Depardieu, who's not that fat in it? I can't get through it. That's the Man in the Iron Mask. I got halfway through that. Leonardo DiCaprio, 88, Finest to Poorest, probably break that one down like the Twins or whatever. I can't get through it. It's so bad. And I've watched a few regular Three Musketeers movies. Is that the one with the kid that played Robin when George Clooney was Batman? It doesn't matter. I never got through it. I couldn't tell you what the truth is in here. It's so unnatural how many times it keeps coming back around. There's some sort of truth in it that reality wants to present. Even if there's no blatant truth in the story. I don't know, the Three Musketeers is some presentation of the Trinity, or how they're trying to bastardize the Trinity, or what is the fourth? Is that Dark Tanyan? For our whole lives, anybody in the U.S., the kid's name was Dark. That's all we knew. D-A-R-K. We thought that was his name, and Tanyan was the last name. That's all we knew in the United States. I'm telling you, there's some sort of truth in it. I don't care to watch it. There's no possible way this shit comes around this much if there isn't. That's my theory, and I'm sticking with it. Okay, guys, this is why it's called a stuffed Lenin. This is a very serious part of the presentation. If you're doing the TPS reports, keep doing them. It's just same picture we've all seen of Lenin behind the glass, like in Tommy Boy. Is that shrimp available behind the glass case? It's still there. I can't believe with all that Russia's been through that it's still there. If anybody listening to the sound of my voice would like to go there and pay their respects, you can. I can't believe it's still there. It's so Lenin in this tomb, this behind this glass, like the shrimp in Tommy Boy, is carried through time. You can still go today. He died in 1924. Still looks not one day over 80. It's a perfect preservation. I think they pumped argon behind the glass, like what protects the United States key documents that safeguard everybody's freedoms, as demonstrated over the last 2 years here in the United States and throughout the West. So 1924, because of this huge demand to mourn for Lenin's body, they erected this temporary thing, which became a permanent thing, and they're just going to keep him there basically at this point forever. Vladimir Putin, I just read, is all for as many people as possible showing their respects. So why I'm using the term, you have Lenin artificially carried through time forever, and then you have concepts like one we've talked about in the past. If a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there, does it make a sound? That's artificially carried through time for whatever reason, because people in the early 1800s were really talking about quantum physics and the presence of observers. Yeah, I buy that, sure. See, it's not just carried through time artificially. The history of where it came from is bullshit in these presentations as well. If anybody, I hear you, and there's certain people throwing rubber duckies say, Matt, I don't like the term, because that ain't Lenin behind a glass case. That ain't nothing but a Madame Tussauds. Who knows what they did with the body? That ain't nothing but a Madame Tussauds. If anybody listening to me is interested in taking the trip to Red Square to see this thing, let me read from the website. The mausoleum is open to the public Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday from 10 to 1300. 1300? I wasn't in no military. What is that? That's just 1 o'clock, I guess. 10 to 1? That's it? 10, we'll address that in a second. But see, it's not open Friday. Why not? I'm no expert on Russian Orthodox religion. That's I think their holy day, is it? What if you traveled your whole family from like Montreal, or even worse, like Edmonton? You have to go through Montreal, then go through LaGuardia or JFK or Newark. Then you fly to somewhere else. Then you finally take your Aeroflot or whatever they fly from 1955 into Moscow. And you get out there on a Friday and you want to talk about friggin' exhaustion. Kids are tired or screaming, hungry. They don't like the Russian food. They've only been there about 5 hours. What do you want to do, kids? We're finally, I want to see Lenin's tomb. I want to go to Red Square. The first thing I want to do is see Lenin's tomb. And you get there on a Friday. Well, of course it's got to be open. It's closed. It's all chained up. You can't even get in there on a Friday, but you can get in there on a Sunday. And only from 10 to 1. Now, the reason they do that is obvious. Nobody wants to go into this thing. If it was open all day, you'd be in there by yourself, like one family per hour. You squeeze it down to 10 to 1, then it seems crowded and busy. It seems like a popular attraction. As the attraction gets more and more lame over the years, you squeeze the hours down even further. Soon it'll be open from 10 to 10:15. You got to queue up for just the 15 minutes. Let me just continue to read this and move on. Okay, it says to enter is free. Well, of course it's free. If it was even 50 cents, they wouldn't have had a visitor since 1960. It's free. Again, it's 10 to 1. You need to make it seem like it's a popular attraction. If they even charged a dime, it'd be crickets. Before visitors are allowed to enter the mausoleum, armed police or military guards search them. That's also just to create an aura or some sort of a feel of God. There's no reason for that, of course. It's to create drama. Visitors are required to show. Again, remember. Well, Matt, somebody could get in there. No, it's a Madame Tussauds, like I said. There's no threat. Visitors are required to show respect while in the tomb. Photography and filming inside the mausoleum are forbidden, as is talking. You can't even talk to your wife in there. You can't smoke. You have to keep your hands out of your pockets. I'm reading this. And you can't wear a hat unless you're female. Well, that doesn't make any sense. If it's some security risk, well, you could have the Femme Nikita in there. And she could put whatever she's going to put under her hat. That doesn't make any sense. I guess it's a respect thing, Matt. You have to take your hat off before a baseball game too, right? You can't put your hands in your pockets, though. I have a real problem with this. Okay, no talking. They create a somber attitude. They don't want anybody laughing. Fine. But it's Moscow, dude. It's negative 50 degrees even in July. You can't put your hands in your pockets? Now, I know it's the kinder and gentler Russia of the modern era 2022, where leaders ride horseback without a shirt on. It's not the old days of the Soviet Union or Russia with Nikita Khrushchev. You just look at him wrong, they'll send you to like Novosibirsk for the rest of your life. It's not, what was his name, Brezhnev, a fat Brezhnev sitting on this Politburo throne. It's a kinder, gentler Russia. But still, if you want to go see Lenin's tomb and you come up to that big sign with the instrucciones, you got to have cojones, balls, to go in and violate the instrucciones before seeing Lenin's tomb. I'm sure there's a tough guy once a year. I'm from Philly, man. I didn't bring no gloves. Look what it says here, Tina. It says I can't put my hands in my pockets. I'm freaking freezing out here. I don't care what this instrucciones say. I'm putting my hands in my pockets. It's a free world. It ain't a free world. This is Russia, says Tina back to Anthony. Half the Anthonys in South Philly are Anthony. They're Anthony. What's your name? Anthony. Not Anthony? No, Anthony. He's Anthony and Tina go see. It's not Tony and Tina's wedding. It's Anthony and Tina go to see Vladimir's tomb at first vacation out of South Philly their whole lives. I'm putting my hands in my pockets. I'll even show these motherfuckers that I'm going to do. And they get in the tomb, and he's got to be a big tough guy. He says, I'll even announce it to these motherfuckers. I'm putting my hands in my pockets. What you gonna do to me? Send me some labor camp? And then a couple guards walk around the side of the railing with Kalashnikovs. And Anthony's like, uh-oh, we ain't in Kansas. We ain't in South Philly anymore. Just to show you I wasn't kidding, this is from the website at the bottom, keeping hands in pockets is a violation. And I'm sorry to anybody throwing rubber duckies. Matt, I came here for some serious truth. And very quickly today it broke down into a clown show. I hear you. Let's get back to some more serious discussion. Okay, in this section, we can finally settle one of the biggest debates that has ever taken place on this channel, probably going back to the Texas Shrugged days. Light Beer from Miller says, does it taste great or is it less filling? And we did something very similar for pretty much close to 10 years. I would come forth and say, is reality in some way breaking down into a clown show, or is it the same and it just seems different to us because I used to use the term, I still do, but back when I was presenting this debate a long time ago, is it because we're dropping veils and we no longer are fooled and we can see through this and we can see through that? And it's like, well, is it us? Or is it the reality itself breaking down? And I think every time I've ever made the presentation, I came forth and said, well, it's a little bit of both. Now, whenever I talked about this over the years, there were always people in the comments that would come forth, and they were adamant. And they would say, Matt, no, reality's not breaking down or anything. You're simply dropping veils. You can see what always has been. And I would say, well, no, I don't think this crazy clown show that's completely, absurd and was going crazy. I don't think this always has been, and I'll use the same, example again. Go watch the news from 1985. It seems like a pretty serious and respectable professional presentation. And these people are adamant, like, Matt, no. It's always been the same. It's now you have the eyes to see. You've changed. The reality itself hasn't. Okay, you may disagree with what I put forth here, but I'm very, rock solid in my position at this moment as to what I think is happening to kind of solve the old debate of less filling or taste great. Is it us changing with perception, or is reality changing? And you know what the answer is? That was a math equation that needed 3 variables or 3 components to solve the equation. And we kept going back and forth with only 2. There's a whole other variable that needs to be part of that equation. I guess maybe that's why we never got anywhere. And it absolutely relates to the same thing, the ship of fools. So the ship of fools and that descriptor of how reality works and how we've jumped off standing on the shore helps, solve the old equation of, is it us changing or is it reality changing? Okay, so it's both, but there's no doubt that reality is at least this part is absolutely solved, whether you agree with my back end part of this explanation or not. Everybody, I think, is going to agree with this. Reality is absolutely breaking down, all right, objectively. It is so absurd. Just throw a dart in any area. I mean, what's presented to you today as a politician versus, JFK or something, or politicians of the past. Now, I'm not going to do a sidebar. This system's been here a long time, and they all serve it. People in the truth community still believe that. Matt, didn't you hear the JFK speech about warning us about secret societies? Oh, sure, yeah, sure, yeah. No, it's all. The system's been here a long time, and I'm sorry, no president escaped it. That's my opinion. But Zara, you're gonna have to get down. Okay, sorry. Every time I start, she'll jump up, get into the microphone. It's a very highly professional presentation. So there was a third variable we didn't have. Start from the basics. No doubt it's breaking down across the board. The people that cover these ridiculous TV shows and movies are the rings of power. Somebody cited the other day that there was one article that alluded to or said flat out, if you don't like the rings of power, or the number of people that don't like the rings of power is a threat to democracy itself. Or, I mean, it's lunacy. Every part of society and culture is lunacy across the board. So it is breaking down objectively. Okay. Now, our perception is different because we've jumped off the back of the ship of fools. Here's where you kind of bring a Mandela effect in, and what I've talked about, the ship of fools. Reality changes, whether you think these are metaphysical changes, like a fluid reality, or just things come up in culture that everybody accepts. Things change very quickly on the ship of fools. If you're on the ship of fools, whether you believe in my human download theory or not, everybody goes along with how quickly things change on the ship of fools. And everybody thinks all these changes are completely normal. For example, certain lifestyle choices that came just 10 to 12 years ago. This is not possible. A whole culture could adopt a way of thinking about certain things that had apparently been set in stone for hundreds of years. Now everything has changed, and certain things are celebrated. I'm not saying anything's right or wrong. I'm just saying you in no normal world could change that quickly and that rapidly, with everybody down the cul-de-sac thinking these changes are just normal. The reality is very fluid, and everybody on the ship of fools just immediately resets to it. That's the variable that we didn't have when we just did the old light beer from Miller, less filling or taste great. Is it me and my perception, or is it the reality? It's all of it, or both, because the reality is breaking down. All the people on the ship of fools or in culture and society are resetting to it as the quote new normal, or they don't see that there's anything wrong. And this kind of comes or brings forth a more current debate where people will say, which I don't believe at all, when people will come to me, whether it be the Mandela effect or something else, people say, Matt, your cousin deep down knows something's not right, or deep down knows it was, if you build it, they will come, but they don't want to break their worldview, or I don't buy that. I really don't. I believe the download, or the human download, is just to describe like a metaphysical process where these people do reset to the new reality. I don't believe they think there's anything wrong. I don't believe that deep down they really know. Maybe there's higher self, or some part of them spiritually, if they're a real spiritual being that's not here, knows. But what you call your friend or what you call your cousin, no, deep down they really want to be with you, Matt, on your side, but they don't want to ruffle feathers. No, I don't buy that. I believe they absolutely, if the ship of fools changes to the color blue, they'll change like a chameleon sitting on the back of Barney the purple dinosaur will just change right to match whatever the chameleon's sitting on the back of. I think that's how reality works, how people on the ship of fools work. So it is breaking down objectively, but really only from our perception. reality is becoming a clown show. It's not like in other words, all factors are valid at the same time. There's no doubt that reality is breaking down into a clown show, okay, by any metric. So we know that part is valid, but it's also our perception of it, because we're watching the ship sail away, and it's also exponentially speeding up its clown show tactics and presentations. So almost weekly it becomes stranger to us standing on the shore, but the people on that ship know deep down, Matt, they know, they want to be with you. No, they don't. But I can see people firing rubber duckies, and we could get into a jump into the weeds argument over, what I just presented, that, everybody's just immediately resetting to it, and it's all the new normal. To a degree, I don't mean everybody, all right? You get into the weeds, and let's not do this too much, but just for a minute or two. My friend Tony, who I've talked about many times, okay, he's always been a stereotypical conservative. And the root of conservatism is very natural. 30 seconds or less. You've heard me talk about this, because it's basically saying this giant behemoth, all of the government overreach, its size, its scope, what it spends, this is not right. Something's wrong here, and we need to rein this monster back in. The roots of conservatism is very natural. So Tony will still complain where certain subjects are taught, like to his kids in school, things that he finds offensive, or things that never would have been presented in our high school when we went to school. But so in that way, Matt, he's not just completely morphing to it and loving it. He's not just resetting to it and loving it. No, he's not. He is. So I hear you. He's pushing back to a degree, but they're still on the ship of fools, and there's always a reasonable explanation as to why these things are happening. He'll say, the left-wing influence, Matt, which is basically an offshoot of the new communism, and that is infiltrated television and movies, and that's why these woke themes, Matt, the liberals are basically hardcore communists. It's almost like the Red Scare of McCarthy era. See, he has a way, I'm saying that still is resetting to the new normal, like the human download. He'll always have like a normal way to explain it, but he will object to it. He doesn't want his kids subject to certain things, or, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I know we can go back and forth here forever. He will reset with everybody else in the ship of fools, still not like certain presentations that come out of culture, still push back, but there'll always be a regular way between the bookends way of explaining it. Oh, Matt, those politicians now, you don't know how basically the communists have taken over the liberal factions inside the Democratic Party. Always a way inside the toy box to explain it away. And that, to me, that's not somebody that desperately wants to see what we see, because we see these answers are outside the toy box. The answers are way outside the bookends. We know that. Okay, I'll listen to that last section again, because I knew I was missing something, and I think this is what I'm missing. If somebody objects to this liberal wave that took over their high school, that now their kids are subject to, if they complain about it, then they are not pushing back against it per what we're discussing here in our definitions. If they go into the same old toy box and get a societal or cultural explanation between the reality bookends to explain it away, then it's not a real pushback. All right. See, what's happening to the world today. Are we going to blame it on liberals that have been influenced by reading too much Karl Marx? Of course not. Of course, we have a lot of different theories. The police lineup. What bad guy to point at? Is there no bad guy to point at it? We see that things going on in this world are not explained away with normal means anymore, no matter what we believe it to be. It's way outside the bookends. So what I'm saying here is, we'll factor this in, I guess, in videos going forward. If you're complaining about it, but you immediately go to a ready-made excuse that society has handed you as to the reason for it. Like Tony, again, one last time, because I've heard him complain about this, this liberal wave or this liberal disease that has flooded the school systems, that he's highly angry at it, as he should be. But then he has a normal between the bookends explanation. He'll go into the toy box that society wants him to go in to find the explanation. He'll use society and culture's ready-made answers and responses as to why it's happening. And if you go and you take one of their favorite, flavors to explain it away, you're pissed off about what's happening, but then you're going to the same not milk system and getting your reason for it, a reason that's been ready-made and baked for you like a cake, then that's not a legitimate complaint. To me, that is still somebody in the middle of the ship of fools that's completely fooled and on the download. I would say if they're using the explanation handed to them to bitch about whatever situation that has arisen that they don't like, then they're not truly complaining about it. That's not a great way of putting it. I've got to pause here and think of a really basic example. And then if this works, you maybe go back and listen to the last 2 minutes, because I'm even a little confused, and I'm the one giving my own presentation. Think about that. Okay, this example might help explain the last few minutes. If you're doing the TPS reports, I'm just showing the Wikipedia for the sports announcer, Al Michaels. 1 minute to set the scene here to tell the story as to how this all came to be. I've told you before, my dad's 80, and we have nothing in common. Nothing to talk about other than certain sporting events. He knows I don't watch the NFL anymore, and he made an appeal to me this year. It's like when the Eagles were 3-0 or 4-0, he's like, look, the Eagles are undefeated. They're really good this year. Why don't you watch a little bit and we can talk about it? And I'm like, fine. I thought, I don't have anything else to talk to my father about. Is it so horrible? So the last 4 games, I guess, I've watched a quarter, I've watched a half, I watched most of the Dallas game. Anyway, so now I've talked to my father a little bit about it, so we have at least something in common. Anyway, so he tells me, okay, Eagles are on Thursday Night Football last night. Like, watch the Eagles. They're playing Houston. That's the same city that the Phillies are playing in the World Series. Make sure. And I'm like, okay, I'll tune in for as much as I can or whatever. Anyway, long story short, which is becoming a long story, I know. I'll wrap it up. I go over to Thursday Night Football last night, and I went, oh no, Al Michaels? I went, this is the guy, literally, was it 1976 Miracle on Ice or 1980? I watched it as a kid, live on TV, that Miracle on Ice, Mike Eruzione, the U.S. Olympic hockey team, beats the Soviets, and then they went on to win the gold medal. He did that call in the 70s or 1980. I said, I don't know, how old is this guy? Looking now, Wikipedia, 77. I thought he must be in his 80s. I went, Al Michaels is still doing this? I couldn't believe it. So yes, I don't want this to evolve into a stalled century presentation. It is part of the stalled century, but to go back and kind of help what was being discussed now 4 or 5 minutes ago, these guys never leave their positions. And what would, like my friend Tony say, they would always pull the ready-made answers as to explain all the strangeness away. If they're looking inside their toy box that's given to them, the toys that are given to them with the lurch or the thing hand that comes out of the box hands them the toy, or if they're looking between the bookends, inside the reality bookends for the ready-made answers, then they're not truly complaining. So if someone were to ask us, why is Al Michaels still there? We might start talking about a lot of strange things, like relating it to stalled century. Why is Vanna White still there? Is there a reason why? Could this all be a correlation or tied together? Where somebody on the ship of fools will say, this is the same things. They'll say, Matt, these people are addicted to the fame and the power, and they can never step down. And there's some truth to that, of course. But I'm just saying, we see, even if we're right or wrong, we see beyond it. We don't limit ourselves to the thing hand coming out of the toy box presenting the ready-made toy. We don't limit ourselves to between the bookends. We go outside the bookends. So he might think it's strange to a degree that Al Michaels is still there, but what is he going to say? Exactly what he's been conditioned to say. Matt, these people can never leave the limelight. They're addicted to power, running the script that they've been given. The point is, from 5 minutes ago, that's not a real complaint. That's still somebody on the ship of fools. If everybody on the ship of fools thought the same things, then maybe people would start to notice something strange is going on. If there's different factions and different complaints and people bitching about this and having a problem with this, then the ship of fools seems normal. Okay, when of course it's very abnormal. I guess the final way or another way to put it is if people run scripts. If they see something they don't like and they complain about it, or they point at something that's abnormal, but then they run the scripts, the obvious scripts that society has handed them as to the reason for it, they're not really complaining. I think the Not Nilk reality knows that if people are constantly bitching and complaining, it makes everything in this world seem more normal, seem less scripted. What was it in The Matrix? Introduce the idea or the concept of choice. It's very similar. Bitching and complaining about a variety of different things in society, like corrupt politicians or greed, or, if you're constantly bitching and complaining and digging in and fighting in camps, that is like the Matrix choice. It seems like that's free will when you're bitching and complaining, or my friends or cousins are digging into a side, but it's not free will if the basis of your complaint is a cue card that's been handed to you by the Not Nilk system itself. If everybody is on the ship of fools just getting the download, and I could, I'm saying this, but imagine a whole chorus of people saying the same things at the same time. I think, like, if any bit of anybody is real, if there's any light left in people, they would notice that. But because there's so many different camps, and so many things, even like this whole SJW movement, how there's a whole conservative side or reactionary side to it. All you can kind of see, or we can see, how everybody's playing the Not Nilk's game when the people on the ground believe they're in genuine protest against it. Now let's talk about this villain for a few minutes or more. Rush Limbaugh. An army of one. Rush Limbaugh. I went through the conservative phase. It's very natural when you emerge from the Matrix. I probably, 2-3 times a week listen to the Rush Limbaugh show, at least a segment or part of it. It was mostly advertisements. It was the most annoying thing in the world. At least 2 years, if not 3 years. I watched the Glenn Beck show on Fox for probably 3 years, back in 2007 or 2008, 2009. I watched the Alex Jones show. We all progress. We don't, people expect that, Matt, you weren't born out of the womb with full veiled drops. No, I had to progress through it just like everybody else. The point is to keep progressing, to keep finding what the next level is. And we're pretty close to there, because we can see the reality is crafted, so we keep looking for the rest of our lives. The idea is to say, okay, I see its trick. There is no more floor up higher that's going to provide truth. The idea is to go back down the elevator and just get the F off of it. But we've talked about that before. Let's stick to the point here. This villain, Rush Limbaugh. At some point, we all heard the rumors his last 10 years, the contract was $250 million or $300 million. And oh my gosh, that's an incredible amount of money. No, he was underpaid by billions, or underpaid by hundreds of billions. A person like this is essential to keeping the system believed in. There is no price tag that can be put on that. Should have demanded $1 billion a day, and it would have been worth it. Certain people, especially on the conservative side, are essential so people believe in the integrity of a system that has no integrity, that the emperor has no clothes. There's nothing at all going on like what he is saying is going on. And it gets back to the old graduated Animal Farm concept. People will emerge out of CNN and out of the regular news and point back at it and say, something's not right here. How is this behemoth allowed to be so big? And people in these animal farms like Rush Limbaugh, they'll move on. In the book, I guess I talked about it. One free range, the chicken will escape the Tyson Chicken Ranch and go free ranging for a little bit, and it will find this paradise ranch, this Rush Limbaugh ranch. You're an escaped chicken. Come, you were with the CNN and the national news with Nora O'Donnell. Oh, come over here. You don't want that mainstream news. You're an escaped chicken. Look at our free range shit, horse shit. Come on into this range, or it's comfortable. But in the case of Rush Limbaugh, you can come in here and bitch, and we have the same complaints about the system you do. And we have such a powerful voice as our leader, Rush Limbaugh, that the senators and the congressmen will hear our complaints. So come into our ranch and bitch with us, but then get stuck here, and the fact that you can people complain just makes the whole thing normal. They say to themselves, okay, I had problems with this system, but there's whole new outlets there's a whole new outlet or something I can turn to that matches my level of discontent. There's a graduated Animal Farm to match each level of discontent. But the main point is, based on what we've been talking about, the system provides a ready-made solution for almost anything anybody can bitch or complain about. It's not just the graduated animal farms. There's ready-made answers, scripts placed into people's hands as to when they complain about this or about that. And this is all, the not milk is very sophisticated. It is essential that people have ready-made reasons or answers to their complaints, or scripts that they can run when they decide to complain, but also outlets they can go to where they can, their voice can be, quote, heard. The friendly Rush Limbaugh comes forth. I don't know what he was like when I listened. He was getting to be an older man. And, he had some health issues, the ear issue, he couldn't hear. And he became more of like a friendly caricature. Maybe he was more hardcore or meaner in the old days. I don't know. I didn't listen. But when I listened, he was more of a friendly caricature. And the people listening, you just knew that, this man, he's even listened to by U.S. congressmen and senators, and they could never go too far, because if they went too far, Rush he'll set it right for us. It was like the listeners were putting their power into his hands. And I felt the same way to a degree, I guess, when I first started listening, but very quickly, I graduated through my Animal Farms pretty quickly. I thought, he never really pushes anybody. When certain lines are crossed, yeah, he'll complain about it and he'll take phone calls or whatever, but he never, ever really goes and lays the gauntlet down. And, it's so obviously, of course, he is a graduated Animal Farm that works for the system itself, a villain. He understands I guarantee for 40 years this man has probably had an idea that, politics just doesn't exist the way people think it does. And most very important elections, they kind of know who's already won before it even happens. And he probably has had the $4,000 bottle of cognac with Nancy Pelosi on one side and, whatever conservative, Ted Cruz on the other. I mean, he knows it's all one big WWE, WWF, and, he was very important in keeping the belief in the system together while people still had the mind to push back. I'm not sure it matters today. We see how far the ship has sailed downriver, how gone people are. I don't think they need a Rush Limbaugh today, because look what I tried to find out who replaced him, and there is no replacement for the Rush Limbaugh show. I don't think the show exists. I found some things that say this guy named, what's his name? Clay Travis. Clay Travis is in this time slot on the radio. And this guy named Buck Sexton. No, it's not a porn star that was in Boogie Nights with, what was his name? Dirk Diggler. Buck Sexton is not a Rush, he's a Glenn Beck lackey. I mean, he worked for Glenn Beck for years. He also worked for the CIA. They're just telling you, right? It's like Anderson Cooper. So the guy that basically take over this time slot for Rush Limbaugh is a CIA agent. That's on record. They just, and his name's Buck Sexton. Did he star in that offshoot? What was it, with Brock Landers and Chest Rockwell? Should have been like that they make an appeal to the Colonel. We want to do our own show, and Dirk Diggler creates the fantasy characters Buck Sexton and Chest Rockwell with special guest star Buck Sexton. It's a real person that does these conservative talk shows now. They don't need somebody that's literally like this guy really had talent on holding his audience together. And the belief that if things got too out of control, that Rush would step up on their behalf. This type of Pied Piper leader on the conservative side really doesn't exist anymore. So they throw in Buck Sexton and Clay Travis, or is it? I think his name's, hey, Clay Travis, if you're listening to me, and I'm sure you are, you got your name backwards, buddy. You got confused in elementary school when you signed your name. Your name's Travis Clay. You've been walking around for years saying your name's Clay Travis. You got it backwards. Are you in the same? Are you 6 feet apart from Buck Sexton, I hope? Anyway, it doesn't matter, guys. They don't need to put forth these geniuses to gel everything together, because that ship's so far gone down the river. People are so far gone. They don't need people like Rush Limbaugh anymore. But when not everybody was on the download when they listened to Rush in the, he got super huge in the mid 80s or late 80s, and no, probably got super huge in the mid 90s, but carried that through the 2000s. And whatever he was making, he was $1 billion a day underpaid. Because a guy like this was that important to holding the beliefs set together on this fake-ass system. Okay, this is the guy. Buck Sexton. This is the Glenn Beck lackey that's with Clavis Trey. Clay Travis. They're taking over the time spot. Buck Sexton. Does it say anything here in Wikipedia? If anybody's still doing the TPS reports, I'm showing the Wikipedia for Buck Sexton. Does it say anything here about his screen name, Buck Naked, for certain types of films? No, it doesn't say. No affiliation to Chest Rockwell. But anyway, they don't everything. Talk about degradation, stalled century. And now, by the way, Matt, Rush Limbaugh, he was only 70. That's not stalled century. It was stalled century because he had, again, just like Alex Trebek, he was supposed to go to work. I guess he didn't take no 10 years off and go sit on the Great Pyramids like Morgan Freeman in The Bucket List. He died he was working, I guess, right up to the day he died. He didn't have no time off on his own, didn't take his $200 million and relax. That is stalled century, but he only made it to 70 for whatever reason, but he didn't need that. They work right up until the last day. I mean, no matter how many millions they have, the themes of the stalled century repeat and repeat. And Buck, if you're listening to the sound of my voice, I was going to say, don't get too far into the dragon's wing, buddy, but maybe you already are, where it doesn't matter how many millions you start making or whatever, you're going to be like 65 years old and like, I want to go take some time off and I want to go do this. And they're like, you ain't going anywhere, boy. There's no vacation. Don't you look at this fine print here that you signed. It says, you will work until the end. Look at Nancy Pelosi. And she wants to be running around going, Matt, and they always have a script. They're addicted to power, Matt. They absolutely want to be there. Some of them want to be there, but it's like every single case They're always there. Nobody ever just goes off and retires. It's artificial. It gives itself away. Thanks for listening.